What's up, guys? This is Cinema Crossover. I'm back with a new episode of What If Naruto Was Born as Zeus, Movie 1. And if you did enjoy the video, give us a like, and if you're new, much I like my content, subscribe, and hit the notification bell from Crossover Fictions. Now let's begin this new video.
Chapter 1 Naruto sprang awake with a shocked gasp. He gazed about in a panicked state of adrenaline, only to discover nothing but white emptiness. "Hello there," said a voice behind him. He jerked his head in the direction of the voice, where he beheld a humanoid figure made of what appeared to be stars, dressed in a white suit. Hello," Naruto said tentatively, "I don't think I'm supposed to be here." "Where are you supposed to be then?" the being asked, its tone clearly amused. "I don't know, in my room perhaps," Naruto answered, his wrath overpowering his initial apprehension. "Certainly not wherever this is." "Is this some sort of elaborate prank, huh?" he asked, motioning around the room. "You got cameras hidden all over the place, don't you? Are you going to be on TV?" he asked. "You know I could sue you for this." He turned around and exclaimed, "All right, the fun's over, I need to get back to work." "Work?" the being said. "How can you return to work when you're dead?" "Dia, what the FK are you talking about?" He shook like a leaf. "You died, Naruto, can't you remember?" the being inquired. "Yes, you can remember, look at you, you're shaking ever so violently," Naruto replied. Suddenly, a flood of memories burst up from the recesses of his memory, where he had pushed them. In fear, he collapsed to his knees. "I died," he said to himself quietly. "Yes, I died, I remember." The being's voice burst out immediately next to him. "Good, that was quicker than most." Naruto pushed himself away from the thing that appeared out of nowhere, startled. "I am what you call a Rob on Earth 1375, he explained, "and I'm sure you know what that means, don't you?" Naruto's eyes widened in awareness, and an elated smile spread across his face as he comprehended his situation, and he resolved to acquire as much as he could away with. "I get wishes, don't I?" "You do, 3 to be exact," the being replied. "What will those wishes be?" As Naruto opened his mouth to respond, he realized, "This may be the only time I can ever want anything again, I truly believe." After deciding, he said, "For my first wish, I wish to be reborn as the son of Kronos, Zeus." The being looked at him, clearly surprised. "Why Zeus?" he inquired. "The only other mythologies I'm slightly knowledgeable about are Norse and Hindu," Naruto shrugged. "The gods of Norse mythology had a clear end, and I'm not really knowledgeable enough about Hindu mythology to make such a life-altering decision. That left only Greek mythology as a viable option for me, and Zeus was well known to be king there," he shrugged. The being nodded in agreement. "You may continue, but that wish will now be worth 2 whole wishes rather than 1. "I don't want to sound ungrateful, but is there a reason for this?" blinked Naruto. He couldn't read the celestial creature's face, but he could tell the entity wasn't expecting him to pose such a question. "I would have thought it obvious," the entity remarked flatly. "You want to be a god, albeit a small one in comparison to me, but a god nonetheless." "Oh, I see," Naruto replied. "I suppose it's only fair, I'll carry on with my last wish." The being nodded once again in approval, motioning him to go. "As for my final wish, I wish for naturally incredible leadership qualities." It had always perplexed him how random people suddenly became the best at everything as soon as they reincarnated. While it may appear that he squandered his wish, Naruto believed that as a god, he would have more than enough power for himself. What he really needed was the power to watch over and maintain his soon-to-be kingdom. "That is all, thank you," the being said as he brushed his non-existent beard. "Yes, I suppose these are all pretty standard if I'm being honest." "Okay," the being said as he clasped his hands. "Now be gone." Wet and hot. These two sensations were sensed by our protagonist as he began to awaken. He could hear what was going on beyond his new mother's tummy with astonishing clarity. "Wow!" Naruto exclaimed excitedly, "I'm Zeus now." His daydream was interrupted short by loud screams of pain, and he felt driven out of his temporary sanctuary. He sprung out, coated in amniotic fluid from his stay in the womb. Soft hands seized him, and he was clean and enveloped in furs as soft as clouds almost instantaneously. He looked around his surroundings with tremendous curiosity and observed 2 women, one of whom he assumed was Rhea. She was a gorgeous woman with a heart-shaped face, slightly tanned skin, black hair wrapped up in a crown braid, warm brown eyes, and a round nose. The second woman stood behind Rhea. giving her a wary look at the barred door of the cave where they lived. She was a gorgeous woman, no doubt about it, albeit her beauty emanated primarily from her youthful appearance. Unlike Rhea, she had practically pure white skin, an angular face, platinum blonde hair, and clear pale blue eyes. Standing so close together, you'd assume they didn't have anything in common. When a voice filled with regretful determination shouted forth, the glorious though brief moment was ruined. "Is the child ready, Rhea?" The second woman's face was filled with panic, but she quickly schooled her expression and reached out her hand in a grasping motion. "Give him to me, my queen," she said quietly. Rhea said to the second mother as she handed over her kid, "His name will be Zeus, make sure to tell him that." Anime crossover. Naruto's name is Zeus, but I'll refer to him as Naruto in this story. The second woman nodded and turned towards a hallway that wasn't there a second before. Rhea, seeing that the plot had worked, produced a sculptured stone wrapped in exquisite cloths and repeated her cries of delivery pains. "Almost my king," she said in response to his earlier question. After a few moments, "He's out now, my king." Following those statements, the sculpture infant began to replicate sounds and noises that resembled those of a child. Finally, "This was the longest you'd ever gone in birthing a child," the voice's owner said, "and I was beginning to fear something was wrong in there." Kronos had chosen his most kingly appearance today. He was a man of great height and appearance, with a fine black sheen of hair and fiery golden eyes that seemed to pin everyone caught gaze at them in place. Kronos entered the birthing cave, his gaze fixed on the mass of furs in Ray's arms. "Is that the boy?" Kronos inquired subtly. "Yes," Rhea spat, her tone tinged with malice, "this is the boy." "What are you going to call him?" Kronos was prepared to wait till she responded. After all, there was no rush. "I'll give him a name, Zeus, Naruto." A young, half-naked lad dashed across the relatively tiny forest that the soft, milky white light of the moon illuminated in the middle of the night. This boy was none other than our hero, Naruto. He was a gorgeous boy for his age, with a gleaming sheen of bright yellow hair on his head and eyes the color of a summer day. He clutched a little stone in his hand that he had honed earlier in preparation for this day. He paused to listen for noises of the prey he had been pursuing for the past few minutes. While he was now a deity, his strength was still limited because he was still a child. Snap. The sound of a twig snapping was like a scream in the frigid solitude of the night, attracting Naruto's attention to the annoyingly evasive deer's hiding position. Before the animal could even flinch, Naruto cocked his palm back and threw the rock with all the might his tiny arms could summon at the partially covered head of the deer. Swoop. As it was buried deep into the deer's head, the pebble created a wet, crunching sound, killing it quickly. "Yes," Naruto exclaimed, pumping his fist in joy. He dashed over, grabbed the deer's neck, and swung it over his shoulders. Of course, with his little stature, such a sight wasn't as awe-inspiring as he would have liked it to be, but it didn't matter right now because he had just gotten his first successful kill on his own. Returning to the direction of the cave that had been his home for many years in this new world. When he arrived at the cave's entrance, he noticed one of the women charged by his mother with looking after him in his new life standing there with a bow and a quiver slung across her back. Adrastea, the woman waiting for him at the entrance, was a mountain nymph, a race of eternally young women well known for their hunting skills. She was a woman with soft features that made her look more cute than beautiful. Much to her chagrin, she had dark silver hair and bright gray eyes, and she wore fur clothes made from animals she had killed in the past. "I did it," he confessed, "I killed the deer." "Yes, you did, but you were several minutes late." Naruto scowled at her tone's innuendo. "It was my first," he grumbled. "Give me a break." His words made Adrastea roll her eyes. Adrastea responded, "Come in, Ida has been waiting for you." His face lit up at those words, and he sped up to keep up with Adrastea as they proceeded down the lengthy tunnel path that led to a vast round clearing lit by torches that never went out. Ida sat in the center, her platinum blonde hair shimmering in the light of the torch. "Ida," Naruto exclaimed loudly, "I did it, I caught the deer." "Yes, Naruto, I see that," she replied, "put it down so I can prepare." Naruto laid the corpse next to her and looked at her with an expectant expression. "You said you'd tell me about my father if I could do it." "Yes, I did," Ida nodded. "Sit down." He sat down eagerly, knowing the stories from his past, but he thought it would be better if he heard them from someone born so close to the time period. In the beginning, there was only the first primordial chaos, and no one knows how long it took, but suddenly out of that chaos came the second primordial, and mother of all life, Gaia. Gaia was lonely. Chaos was not well known for conversations of any kind. She wished for a companion to ease her loneliness, and Oranos came forth as a result of her desire. It should be noted that following the birth of Oranos, Eros, the primordial of love, Tartarus, the personification of the underworld, and Pontus, the personification of the waters, appeared. With the emergence of Eros came the love between Gaia and Oranos, which gave birth to the Titans, but that is for another time. With the assistance of Tartarus, Erebus, the personification of darkness, and Nyx, the personification of night, were born. Erebus and Nyx lay with one another, and from their union came Ether, the personification of upper air, and Hemera, the personification of day. From Nyx alone came Moros, fate, Thanatos, death, Charis, doom, Hypnos, sleep, and many others. Oranos looked down from above and wished for primordial children of his own. His hopes were dashed with the birth of the Hecatoncheires, but he would not give up and continued to impregnate Gaia. Each and every batch failed to satisfy him, and gradually his disappointment turned to anger. He threw the Cyclops and Hecatoncheires into Tartarus, only allowing the Titans to remain on Gaia so he wouldn't have to see them. Gaia was enraged by her husband's treatment of their children and asked the Cyclops in Tartarus to create a weapon powerful enough to aid in the assassination of their father. This weapon was given to the Titans' youngest and most ambitious son, Kronos. If he helped defeat Oranos, he was promised the entire universe. With the help of 4 of his brothers, Hyperion Titan god of the east, Koios Titan god of the north, Creus Titan god of the south, and Iapetus Titan god of the west, Oranos was held down and castrated and cut into 1,000 pieces when he came down to Gaia. Right before Kronos cut Oranos, the king of the primordials prophesied that as Kronos overthrew him, his child would also overthrow him. That is the story of our past, and it's also why your father swallowed all of your other siblings, Naruto. A prophecy, Naruto grumbled sadly, a twice-damned prophecy. Well, I swear I will not rest until I fulfill that prophecy. A bold statement, but you still have a long way to go, to make it true, Adrastea added. Tomorrow we will go to the Koyurites, they will teach me how to fight in preparation for my rebellion against father, he added, turning to face her. Time travel, Naruto, a feminine voice called out. On the Greek island of Crete, there is a forest. The owner of the voice dashed up to a clearing where Naruto was demonstrating his spear skills to the Koyurites. He came to a halt to look at the woman who had summoned him. Yes, matey, he said, what's up? A sharp breath filled Naruto's nostrils as a myriad of emotions flitted through his face. He stared off into the distance towards the direction of the cave that has been his only home since he arrived, as if he could see Ria waiting outside. She's back, Naruto said quietly. He was both excited and nervous because the last time she was here, she had informed him she wouldn't return until it was the best time for him to save his siblings, which would most likely be during the yearly Kronos tributes. Steeling himself for the task ahead, he launched in the direction of the cave, then transformed into an eagle and flew in the same direction. He spotted Ria while flying high in the sky. She was standing outside the cave's entrance, her hands absent-mindedly caressing the heads of the 2 lions by her side. He reverted to his normal state and fell down with his feet first and arms raised up. Boom, coming from the upraised dust, a plume of sand flew up to the sky where he landed. He wore an uneasy expression on his face. Inquired she. Do you think it's time? What is your strategy? She said, nodding. Métis and Ida created a liquid potion that, when ingested, causes the drinker to retch uncontrollably, he explained. It is our plan that I give Kronos this potion to drink and cause him to throw up my siblings. It's a good plan, she said, but how will you escape? There will be other Titans at this tribute. Many of the Titans do not attend the tribute, preferring to have their gifts handed over to him by their servants, he explained, but those who do show up will be hardly a problem for me. It's not Atlas, Naruto. Atlas is well known for his fondness for women. Métis will distract him for me. Good, the tribute will begin tomorrow, she said. Beings of mortal and lesser immortal stature will all attend seeking to curry favor with him. Do nothing to attract any negative attention to yourself. I have to leave. I've been here far too long. Kronos will be on the lookout for me. Goodie. She and her lions had vanished into thin air before he could finish. With a faint crack of displaced air. Sigh. Naruto couldn't help but be concerned about the consequences of his actions. He knew the original Zeus had prevailed, but it didn't imply he was destined to do so. Win. Or did he? He was aware of the fate's existence. Did they also control the fortunes of immortals like him? The mythology was never really clear on this point. He shook his head to clear his mind of such notions. Whatever happens will happen, he reasoned to himself, no amount of worrying can change that. All I can do right now is wait and prepare. It was late afternoon, and Helios's the beams were more powerful than ever. A vast queue of humans and immortals of various sizes and forms stood at the entrance, waiting for their turn at the foot of Mount Othries, to be summoned to pay their respects. Naruto had flown in hours earlier, shape-shifting himself into the most unassuming young mortal he could think of, with a pair of black eyes that were always cast downwards in submission, a dirty mop of brown hair on his head, and an even dirtier pack of fur clothes that stank of overuse. He clutched a comically large container containing the elixir to his chest. Some of those present had not brought anything goes with them. Perhaps they didn't have anything to bring, or perhaps they meant to steal tributes from weaker men, but knowing what would happen if they arrived at the top empty-handed, they didn't hesitate to steal, cheat, or kill. Thrice, Naruto had gotten into a fight with such types of individuals, and he had managed to drive each and every one of them away without drawing much attention to himself. Recognizing that Naruto would not give up his homage, they went searching. For the sake of other men, the hours ticked by till Naruto arrived. The mountain's base. Looking up, he could see his father's palace at the summit of Mount Othries. The proper term was gigantic. Even from this distance, he could see it clearly. It was a magnificent white palace, gray marble with towers adorning its corners. With a gorgeous golden crown at the very top, Kronos' statue stood with its head raised high. It was definitely intended for luxury rather than defense, as it was built high up as if observing the land below. The way was blocked by two immortals, at an angle, carved steps heading up the mountain. They separated to let him in due to an invisible instruction. Naruto had to climb numerous flights of stairs. Occasions had to come to a halt to pretend to catch his breath. He eventually made it up and walked through the palace's open gates, following the hallway that leads to the throne room. The throne room was a vast spherical space with a black marble floor and a ceiling covered with paintings commemorating Kronos' father Urano's defeat and demise. A black throne lined with gold sat on a raised platform far down the throne room. It was occupied by a massive Kronos. He was nearly 14 feet tall and looked every inch the part. On top of his beautiful mop, he was God King. A golden laurel adorned with black hair. Every known gemstone glistened. He was dressed in the finest white. Naruto had never seen silk chitin like this before. A crown, and a pair of blazing golden eyes gazed down from above at him. "Come forward, mortal," Kronos said. "What do you have for me?" Naruto took a deep breath as he walked forward. He hoped that this strategy would work. "Titan God King Kronos," he yelled, lifting the jar for Kronos to inspect, "I bring with me the greatest fruit drink ever made by mortal or immortal hands." A bold statement, Kronos remarked. Many will disagree. People have claimed the same thing, but very few have followed through. "I assure you, my king, I speak the truth," Naruto responded. "I have spent my entire life, just as my father spent his entire life, and his father's life before that, mixing the perfect blend of materials to create the best possible drink ever to grace this universe." He was going to continue speaking when Kronos interrupted him. "All right, mortal, I've heard enough," he grumbled. "Hand it over." With his head bowed in prayer, Naruto raised it over his head. The jar flew out of Naruto's grasp and into Kronos' outstretched hand. Kronos yanked on the stopper, tipped back his head, and drained the contents in one fast mouthful. Wasn't quite as bah. A gush broke out in the middle of his statement. A vomit came gushing out of his mouth with enormous force, along with it 5 fully grown men and women, and to Kronos' future surprise, a misshapen rock in the shape of a baby. These were Kronos' children, who were devoured shortly after birth. Even though he was still heaving, Kronos summoned his famed scythe to his side and swung pitifully at the god dressed as mortal. Naruto snubbed the swing and sprang forward, his leg colliding with Kronos' chin buttocks propelled him backwards to his throne. Naruto went to face his siblings and extended his arm. "Hold my arm, I'll get us all out of here." His siblings leaned back, their misgivings visible on their features. "Look, you can either grab my hand and hold on, or you can stay behind and wait for him to recover." They hung on to him because they had no other choice, and then they vanished in a tremendous crack of displaced air. Crack. The sound of displaced air echoed over the usually peaceful island of Crete. Naruto and his siblings had departed Kronos' palace unscathed. After letting go of Naruto's hand, his siblings turned left and right, looking around with almost childlike interest. That makes sense, I suppose. I've never seen the outside world, a voice exclaimed. Ria bolted out the cave, arms outstretched, after spotting them a few meters distant. She hugged each of them individually, disregarding the slimy mix of saliva and bile that wrapped around them from head to toe. Kronos' stomach contents disappeared from their bodies as she waved her palm away, and clean clothing formed over them. Come, she said as she led them to the cave, it must have been terrible in there, but you can rest here. Surprisingly, they appeared to recognize her. Mother, one of them, a male, said, staring at her. Who is that? Inquired Naruto. The speaker was a tall, gangly Marn. I am Zeus, Naruto replied for his mother, your brother. You weren't devoured along with the rest of us. One of the ladies spoke up. She was stunning, with regal features. The head was adorned with a velvety shine of black. Her emerald eyes and hair appeared to sparkle in the light of day. Naruto looked at his mother and said, No, I wasn't. To learn more about what happened, when I found out I was pregnant again, but with Naruto, I knew I couldn't take his excuses of protecting his kingdom, and so I begged Gaia for help, and it was she who came up with the plan of swapping Naruto with the rock. Ria sighed. Why didn't you do the same for us? Snarled the second man. The second man was larger than the first and wore a dirty blonde mop. With lime green eyes and hair. I couldn't. I'm so sorry, Poseidon, Ria said. He has the scythe. The scythe? Inquired the second. Yes, the scythe is the most potent weapon in the universe, she said. Kronos is the most powerful. It was only used once on our father, Oranos, the sky's primal god. Former universe ruler, and since then we've never seen any indication of father's return. The inference widened Poseidon's eyes. Her words. A weapon capable of killing the unkillable, any immortal's best weapon would be something like this. Fear. Enough, Naruto said, there's no point in talking about it any longer, rest, because we have work to do tomorrow. Ria awoke Naruto from his nap early in the morning. Naruto replied, wiping away his slumber. What's the matter? She nodded, motioning for him to be quiet, her head toward the cave's exit and went away. He focused his holy energy into his eyes, perplexed by her actions, and realized exactly what she meant. What the issue was. He sprang up quickly to follow her to the bright outside. A massive woman stood outside. She appeared to be of average size, sculpted from the ground itself. From the top of her head to the bottom of her feet. She had feet constructed of odd pieces of sticking rocks, precious materials, and dirt. In the place of her physical hair was grass, and on her head was a tangle of vines, leaves, and flowers of various colors and sizes. Gaia's Naruto voice seemed to come from nowhere. Every direction. Naruto was struck with the feeling while staring at her. The ground he traveled brought him to a profound realization. There was a live sentient entity who she was also his granny. Gaia, what brings you here? On the day I gave Kronos his scythe, I made him promise to free his siblings from Tartarus, she sighed bitterly, and he did fulfill his end of the bargain, and for that his Cyclops brothers built for him that magnificent palace at the peak of Mount Othries. Everything was perfect for a while, until Kronos got tired of his filthy, disgusting siblings and threw them back into Tartarus with the help of his 4 brothers. Why are you telling me this? Naruto frowned. Your uncles, the Cyclops, made the legendary scythe of Kronos, she explained, and if you free them from Tartarus, I'm sure they'll make you an enormously powerful weapon to rival Kronos. Naruto's objective had always been to save his uncles, but he was never quite sure how to go about it. As far as he saw it, it was a win-win situation. A weapon to rival Kronos' scythe, he thought, recalling the myths. The Master Bolt is the lightning bolt from which all other lightning bolts are born. He didn't even have to think about his response. With a nod, he swore to go down to Tartarus and free them from their confinement. Thank you, she said quietly, they'll be free soon. Her corpse dropped to the ground and split apart on impact, like a puppet with its strings severed. With a troubled expression on her face, Ria looked at Naruto. What's wrong? Naruto inquired. I've never seen her before, but I've heard of the monster jailer of the Cyclops and Hecatoncheires, and if half of what I've heard about her is true, then you will need to be very careful when dealing with her, she replied. Nodding, he answered, I will, come let us wake the others. Hours later, Naruto set off on his quest to one of Tartarus' known entrances with his best friend. Telekine crafted a spear. This entry was known as the River Styx, named after the Oceanid nymph that lived there at the time. Naruto's rescue of his siblings has reached the ears of everyone in the universe. It was Naruto's aim to release his uncles and persuade Styx with her children, be a goddess of force, Kratos goddess of power, Nike goddess of triumph, and Naruto god of dedication, while Kronos was unaware of the plot. These four gods were well known in mythology for their roles in imposing Naruto's will on the immortals. When he arrived at the massive river, he searched about for the mythical ferryman of the Styx, but there was no evidence of the man or boat. He shrugged, this was something he had expected. Humans from the Golden Age were not the same as humans produced from Earth's bones in the future. The humans of the Golden Period were perpetually youthful, and when died, they lingered on the earth as spirits, thus it made sense that, with few people desiring to trip to the underworld, Karen would not have considered coming here. A peculiar voice shouted out to him as he prepared to leap across the river. Wait, what exactly are you doing? Turning his gaze downriver toward the voice, he noticed a pale lovely woman with black hair and eyes standing at the bank dripping, her damp garments clung closely to her body. She's most certainly Styx, no other being could withstand the river Styx's deadly waters. I am Naruto, Kronos' son, he replied, and you must be Styx. She surprisedly blinked. Son of Kronos, I've heard of you, she said, but do you know who I am? Of course, he continued, how could I not have heard of you? You, the one and only person in the vast universe, capable of not just surviving but also thriving in these waters. Shock flashed across her face, but it was quickly replaced by a proud smile. Not only have you accomplished such an incredible feat, he added, but you also. It's a wonder Kronos hasn't recognized you for having such amazing children. If I were a Titan, I would have done so many years ago. Her face lit up with a knowing grin. I see right through you, Naruto, son of Kronos. You're attempting to persuade me to join your little rebellion, she said. Perhaps I'm not as honored as I'd like, but at least I'm not being hunted down, she replied. How can I trust that if I join your coup, it will end well for me? It was clear to him that she wanted proof of strength that could raise, if not guarantee, the chance of triumph. Gaia sent me down here to free her sons from the care of their jailer Camp. Camp, she said, terror laced her words, this is madness, no one but Kronos has ever defeated Camp, and even he had to use his dreaded scythe. And what if I do manage to defeat her? He inquired, recognizing an opportunity. You will not, she answered flatly, but if I do? Then I swear my eternal fealty to you, but you will not be able to defeat her. I'll keep you to that promise when I return with the sons of Gaia, he added, backing up. Away from her. He leapt above the water and went on his path, completely turning away from her. Boom, Naruto landed with a thud on the other side of the river. Tartarus was a vast desolate wasteland divided into portions by four major rivers: the Lethe, the Archeron, the Cocytus, and the Phlegethon. The Asphodel fields were most likely to his left, separated from the Asphodel fields by the flaming river Phlegethon. He jumped from the cliff, transforming into an animal. Eagle in one fluid motion. Flying high above Gaia, he glanced down on the fields of punishment for any signs of Camp, but instead found the Cyclops and Hecatoncheires huddled together in dread. He landed where he was certain they would notice him. Psst, psst, he said quietly. At the first sound, one of the Hecatoncheires raised his head to glance about. The second noise drew the attention of all of them. They all looked around when they heard the noise, curiosity with caution. They created an oddly comical situation, they who could compete in any. Appearing like a normal man's worst fear about in such perplexity. They all looked in his way at the same time and he was spotted. Can you tell me who you are? One of Hecatoncheires? Asked the same person who had heard him originally. I'm Naruto, son of Kronos, he said quietly. Gaia sent me here to save you. Gaia. Mother, those were the two words, repeated numerous times amongst. Until one of the Cyclops shouted out, it makes no difference who sent you, Camp is here. Cheel never let us go, he lamented. Leave. His remarks did an excellent job of quenching any glimmer of optimism they may have had. I'll deal with Camp, Naruto stated. Just point me in the right direction. Have vanished. All 50 were pointed out by one of the Hecatoncheires. I saw, they said, pointing northeast with their hands. She's heading that way. The others promptly tried to quiet him down. Don't tell him, what if he finds her, and she has him tell her how he discovered her? Don't worry, he told them, today is the day. The final day you will ever be known as camp's detainees. Despite the warnings, he proceeded, in the direction of the Hecatonkuri. I told him about it. It didn't take long while flying above the landform. He used his eye power to discover her, and she was frightening. In several ways, she resembled centaurs. She was half humanoid and half animal, but where the similarities ended, instead of the skin was a strong, leathery brown hide. Below her waist, she resembled on her second back were a pair of dragons. Wings that generated strong gusts of wind. Snakes of various kinds flew whenever she waved her wings. Sizes were dancing on her head, and her face was a mess. A massive mass of flesh and bone protrusions, her waist was a horde of monsters. Each head is more cruel than the last, and a scorpion's stinger was attached to the end of her tail. Spilling deadly poison on her, and in her palm was a flaming whip that burnt everything it touched. Damn, I knew she was scary, but this is insane, on an entirely notha level. Knowing that this would be he braced himself against his biggest foe yet, and Camp whirled around on the spot, staring at him in obvious surprise, as he landed silently behind him. At his alleged folly, Camp, my name is Naruto, son of Kronos, he said. Ah, the son of Kronos, I've heard of your vile trickery on Lord Kronos, she said. He'll see that when I give him your head. I have served him the most dutifully of all his subjects and will have no choice but to do so again. To reward me with the highest possible position, she added, pausing for emphasis, as his reward. Consort, she said, and then she attacked. Whoosh. A strong wind swirled about her as she flapped her wings, gliding towards Naruto with her whip raised high and her stinger set to strike. Whirling her whip in a quick, trained motion, she struck Naruto with a loud snap. He moved aside as quickly as lightning, escaping her fire whip, leaving burn scars on the floor where he dodged. Even from this distance, he could sense he had little to no worries that the whip's terrible fire would burn even him. In an attempt to get behind Camp, he circled her in a slow exact motion with his telekine-made spear pointing at her. He dashed forward without warning, his spear tip jamming straight into and out of her hind leg. Her wound bled the golden ichor of immortals. She shrieked in pain and rage, whipping her tail at him at breakneck speeds. Even for him, he swung laterally to miss the tip of her tail and was instead smacked by the length of her tail. Allowing himself to be thrown into the air by her, he turned into an eagle in midair and landed a few feet away from her. The daughter of Tartarus, enraged by the wound on her body, leapt forward the moment he landed, aiming her stinger at him with the intention of concluding the struggle. Before it could go any further, Naruto dodged left as soon as he landed and poked his spear at her stomach in response. His thrust was cut short by one of the monster heads fashioned into her waist. It bit the tip of the spear and was instantly killed as the shaft passed through its lips and into its brain. Camp let out a yell that reflected her disgust and anger at the boldness of Kronos' son. Her whip sped up with adrenaline, smacking Naruto across the chest, leaving a scorching gash. He was left with a spinning sensation of pain unlike any other after stumbling back from the onslaught as rapidly and as far as he could. Knowing that if he made a mistake here, it would be too disastrous. He gritted his teeth and fought through the pain to the end. He ran as fast as he could towards her, and collided with her, knocking her off her feet. She almost regained her equilibrium at the last second, but a second push from Naruto knocked her over in a heap. In her irritation and wrath, she twirled about in a futile attempt to get back on her feet, screaming and cursing. As she swung the point of her tail towards him, he cocked his hand and flung it as hard as he could straight into her head, swerving backwards from her strike. She almost regained her equilibrium at the last second, but a second push from Naruto knocked her over in a heap. She twirled around in an ineffective attempt to get back on her feet, yelling and shouting in frustration and wrath. As she swung the point of her tail towards him, he cocked his hand and flung it as hard as he could straight into her head, swerving backwards from her strike. With that, the great Camp died. Camp had died. By chaos, that had to be my most difficult yet, Naruto thought to himself. And there's still more to come. He couldn't help but grimace as he looked down at the gaping wound on his chest. This is not the time for reminiscing. I need to get back, but first I need to gather proof of her death. He grabbed her head and, with some difficulty, tore it apart from the rest of her body. He took off into the air and flew till he saw the Cyclops and Hecatoncheires again, precisely where he'd left them. They were all crowded together in fear, looking around for any sign of camp when Naruto appeared from the sky on a rocky platform above them. Hecatoncheires, Cyclops, he began, and they all looked up at him, puzzled, as though wondering why he hadn't returned in parts inside a body bag ready to be given to Kronos. Naruto chose to disregard this almost humiliating situation. Perplexity, just thinking to himself, will become aware of my strength. When we last met, I told you that today would be your last day. As camp's detainees, he raised the previously hidden head behind his back, far above his head, for them to see. I did not lie, he declared, look upon your jailer, my uncles, and know you are free. He threw his head down to them and opened his arms wide, ignoring the sting of pain from his chest wound. Look upon her and know you are free, one of the Hecatoncheires, the same one who asked Naruto who he was when they first met, stepped up to Camp's head and gave it a test kick, as if expecting the head to come back to life and start punishing them again. When he had done his examination, he turned around, all 50 of his heads smiling, and another kick was targeted at the head, this time a stronger one. She's dead, all 50 heads murmured, as though he couldn't believe it. Taking a big breath, he shouted again. She's dead. There was perfect silence among them for a split second before they all shouted at the top of their lungs with relief in their voices. Enough, Naruto exclaimed, jolting them out of their reverie. Camp was nothing. Confusion and fury marked their expressions. Good, let them get angry, he reasoned. In a commanding attitude, he marched back and forth on his platform. Yes, she was nothing, he exclaimed, but a lackey of your true enemy. Our true enemy sits on the throne you built him on, he said, pointing to each of them. He sits there on that throne, while you languish here in eternal torment. And yet you rejoice, he chastised. The Cyclops and Hecatoncheires all nodded, angry awareness on their faces. He promised you freedom, and here you are, a liar, he said. But, as you all know, he remarked, gesturing to Camp's head, I am not a liar. When I promise you freedom, I have given you freedom. It is up to you to make of it what you will. If they opted not to trouble themselves with the gamble, it was a great one. He might lose them permanently in the above world. The Hecatoncheires who had kicked Camp's skull spoke forward, his voice filled with fury. We will assist you, Naruto, son of Kronos, he promised. With an afterthought, he turned to his friends and lifted 50 of his hands, yelling, No, Naruto son of Kronos. Naruto, the Oathkeeper. The cry was quickly picked up by the others. Oathkeeper, Oathkeeper, Oathkeeper. Leaving Tartarus was proving to be far more difficult than entering. Despite their massive size, they were satisfied to go as slowly as possible. They finally arrived at the Styx River. Naruto looked around the flowing river, scrutinizing its surface for any sign of the elusive nymph, Styx. His gaze moved down the glistening waves, trying to get a fleeting glimpse of her presence. He observed her emerging from the depths of the sea from a distance. She appeared with an elegant and slow pace, displaying her exquisite shape. She approached him in surprise, marveling at his enormous bodies. You freed them? Yes, I did, he said as he untied Camp's head from his waist. You wanted proof of my worth, here's the proof, he said as he tossed the head to her feet. Camp's head was even hideous in death than it was in life, and her face was still uglier. Her eyes, which were rolled up, had become a dreadful shade of milky white, her serpentine tongue lolled out of her mouth, and her face was contorted into an ashamed grimace, as if she was still aware of her loss. You killed her, she stated emphatically. Try not to sound surprised, he said, looking at her eagerly. Don't worry, Naruto, son of Kronos, she soothed him, I never break my word, so you'll join my cause? He asked. When you're ready, go to the island of Crete, I'll notify the others of your arrival. They leapt across the river and went on their way. A spectacular vista met him as he ascended the trail towards the cave that functioned as a passageway from the underworld to Gaia. The darkness that had engulfed the subterranean realm was gradually receding, revealing a dazzling glow emanating from the entrance. It was a sure indicator that daylight had arrived, its warm embrace wrapping across the Earth's surface. The anticipation became stronger with each step he made. The rhythmic crunch of gravel underfoot resonated in the peaceful surroundings, harmonizing with nature's dawning songs. The air felt crisp and invigorating, carrying fragrances of dew-kissed grass and blossoming flowers. The trek uphill represented his transfer from the depths of the underworld to the realm of the living, not just a physical climb. As he approached the cave's opening, he felt the weight of gloom lift from his shoulders, replaced by a fresh sense of optimism and vitality. He was certain that if he hadn't been a deity, the brilliance of the sun would have been practically blinding to him after the lengthy period spent in the darkness of Tartarus. The Cyclops and Hecatoncheires were all perplexed as they glanced up into the sky. One of the Hecatoncheires indicated, "Who is that?" inquired Naruto, looking up to where he was pointing. "Oh, that's Helios, Titan god of the sun, son of Hyperion with Thea. I suspect a great many things have changed since you were here last," he remarked, turning to them. "Hold on to me," he urged. Because it was nearly hard for them to hang on to Naruto's because of their size and shape, he eventually decided to grow a little bigger than normal. They vanished in a puff of displaced air. Crack. He let go of the Cyclops and Hecatoncheires and walked away from them, his arms wide out, saying, "Welcome to the Greek island of Crete, where my home is now your home." They surveyed the lovely island with the eyes of an artist. "Make yourselves at home wherever you like," he said, motioning around them. "I will notify the others of our arrival." He moved away from them and toward his dwelling had been a cave in the jungle. Throughout the rest of his second life, as he approached the cave, he noticed his mother and siblings waiting outside. She hurried towards him, tears streaming down her cheeks as she embraced him as tightly as she could. "I thought I'd lost you," she wailed as she kissed his cheeks. "I'm fine, mother," he murmured as he wrapped his arms around her. "How about the others, and where's Métis?" "Métis said she would try to draw some of her brothers and sisters to your cause," she replied. He let go of her and entered the cave, where he saw his siblings gathered around a fire. Fire is discussing something. Adrastea and Ida were standing at the intersection of the. They were chatting to one another in the cave. He raised his voice, attracting the attention of everyone in the cave. "Siblings, I believe it's time for us to introduce ourselves to each other," he began, pointing to himself, as if previously stated, "My name is Naruto." He recognized a handful of their names, but they deemed it best to introduce themselves. A gorgeous man with dirty blonde hair and lime green eyes was the first to speak. The man he recognized as Poseidon said forward, "My name is Poseidon, and from what Mum has told me, I am also your elder brother, and you informed us about us." Naruto observed the emphasis he placed on elder, which he expected, but it did not lessen the displeasure he felt, because the battle for supremacy among the ninja was already underway. It was going to start with brothers. This was to be expected. Poseidon was said to be just as proud as Zeus in the myths. Zeus, but without the necessary might. Not to imply he wasn't powerful, he just wasn't Zeus's equal. No one was as powerful as him, or as influential. "As well as me," he nodded to Poseidon before moving on to the next individual. He could see Poseidon bristle from the corner of his eye at this rejection, but seeing no point in starting a needless, he sat back down after the battle. Good, Naruto thought, not wanting to start a battle because the rest would most likely side with Poseidon, for now. The following person was a woman who chose to stay seated. She was a stunning woman with regal features and a smooth hairstyle. Her emerald eyes and her gloss of black hair in the light of the fire, they appeared to gleam. "My name is Hera," she explained. Fortunately, it was all she seemed to want to say. He smiled at her and said, "It's nice to meet you, Hera." The following one was plainly a male. Hades. He was a tall, gangly man with sunken cheekbones, long, thick hair that extended down to his shoulders, and stunning dark violet eyes. He, too, elected to remain seated, but unlike Poseidon, he made no mention to his position in the birthing order. "My name is Hades, the son of Kronos." That small addition to his introduction piqued Naruto's interest. Why did he say that? If there was a rationale behind his comments, Hades provided no indication of it. He turned to the right, slowly nodding to Hades. The person to his right is the next in line. She was a lovely lady with a round, heart-shaped face, a mess of curly brown hair, and bright golden eyes that appeared to flicker whenever she moved them. Naruto couldn't help but notice how near she and Hades sat to the other characters. She stood up, attracting everyone's attention. "My name is Hestia, Rei's firstborn." Rhea smiled when she heard those words. Nice way to introduce yourself, he thought. The last of Kronos' children stood up. She, too, did not want to be outdone by her sisters. Despite the fact that she was also a lovely lady, with a square, more attractive than lovely jaw and long wavy golden hair that reached her shoulders. Her eyes were the small of her back, the color of honey. I am Demeter, she introduced herself, and I thank you for saving us. You're welcome, he added, nodding. Whether we chose it or not, all of us here are rebels against Kronos' authority, he started. Or not, we've all gathered here to plot the demise of Kronos and his army, he declared, and believe me when I say this, they're not going down without a fight. Their expressions were puzzled as they pondered where he was headed. In this case, they believe they are safe from us, but they are not. We will teach them otherwise, he said, and they will come down, kicking and screaming from their lofty heights. And when they're on their knees in chains, they'll realize that no matter who or what you are, you're not above defeat. We will teach them the meaning of defeat, in this case. They believe they are safe from us, but they are not. We will teach them otherwise, he said, and they will come down, kicking and screaming from their lofty heights. And when they're on their knees in chains, they'll realize that no matter who or what you are, you're not above defeat. We will teach them the meaning of defeat. His voice abruptly increased in loudness. We will teach them defeat. Skip to a few days later. Deep into the mountain's guts, on the Greek island of Crete, one could hear the muffled strokes of the Cyclops' hammer on an anvil. Naruto was struck by a searing backdraft of air as he walked inside the Cyclops' furnace. It made even him perspire. Cyclops, Naruto inquired, are you here? The person dubbed Oathkeeper, what brings you here? Brontes inquired. I'm here to see how things are going. Ah, Naruto, it's going splendidly, Brontes said, just a few more tweaks and we'll be done. Goo, Argas, another of the Cyclops, Brontes, stop gaping and pass me those, he said. We need to get this out with tongs. Argas was standing in front of a massive bucket of lava. Brontes handed over the tongs that were by his side. Argas plunged the tongs into the pail and drew out a black helmet from its depths. Naruto instantly felt a pang of fear shoot through him, as streams of hidden fears passed through his head. Where has the lightning bolt gone? Did they fail to make it? How am I going to defeat Kronos if I don't have it? I'll never be king, he realized as he blinked, realizing the source of his sudden power of those latent worries. The helm of Hades, he said. Are you okay, Oathkeeper? Brontes inquired, concerned. He took long breaths to center himself, said with a nod. I'm fine, I was just caught off guard. He stopped, searching for the proper words. Without a doubt, we should have notified you about it beforehand. To break the unpleasant silence, Naruto inquired, who is that? Hades's Sterapis spoke forward, we thought it was you. Would best suit him, his was also the last of the three, he added, and we planned on handing them over once we were finished. I'll summon them. He took flight as an eagle and came across Hades and Hera arguing and instructed them to go call the others for a meeting at the cavern. A full minute passed before everyone arrived in the cave. There were no surprised reactions because they were all expecting it. What the situation was. Surprisingly, the Hecatoncheires attended. They usually chose to keep the meeting to themselves. In almost ritualistic way, the Cyclops summoned Poseidon to acquire his emblem. It was a trident with a basic yet attractive design, made of gold with intricate carvings, and ended in the standard 3 prongs of tridents. We present this trident to Poseidon. There is no shield or armor, Brontes began. It will be unable to do so anywhere in the cosmos. Pierce. Poseidon strolled up to them, grabbing the trident and raising it high enough for anyone to see. The helm of Hades was next to be passed. Argas takes you to Brontes. Everyone got a kick out of the fact that it was on display for all to see. A faint sense of panic. We give this helm to Hades, he said. May you instill fear in the hearts of all who look at it. Hades appeared to float towards the Cyclops, gradually fitting the helm on his head. The frightening vibe about him grew tenfold. Brontes faltered, and now Naruto, the Oathkeeper. We present to you this enormously powerful weapon. He had a spear in his gloved hand, built of lightning. Taking hold of the weapon, Naruto felt an incredible strength wash over him in wave after wave. Everything else was secondary to him and the spear. At long last, I have the Master Bolt. He proudly flung the Master Bolt into the air for all to see. The Master Bolt was surrounded by lightning, and some even left it to stoke at the ground, leaving the place it impacted burned black. The Titanomachy has begun. Deep within a cave on the Greek island of Crete, Meiti and Naruto were having a heated debate regarding how they were to proceed. The oncoming war, Kronos has everything and everyone on his side. Anyone suspected of consorting with you or harboring rebellious feelings is immediately sent down to the fields of punishment in Tartarus, she was adding. I was only able to evade suspicion because I'm just another Oceanid nymph to them. She admitted it. All right, can you get closer to them and tell us what they're planning? Naruto inquired. Yes, I believe I could reach them through Atlas, she said, but I think he's getting bored with his wife. Who? She's an Oceanid sister of mine, Cleone. Do you understand? He asked, nodding. Have no qualms about doing this to your sister? No, I don't think she cares about it. Besides, it's not real, she replied. All I need to do is keep him thirsty while never quenching it. That'll be a fine line to walk, he reflected, and one single mistake could be your undoing. I know, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. I need to get going, or Atlas will get bored waiting for me and find another woman. He led her out of the cave and out onto the surrounding seas. She then dove into the sea and swam, off in a way that made it appear as if she was the act of flying underwater. He sighed and was about to turn away when he heard a splash of water. Looking back, he thought Métis had returned for some reason, but instead saw Styx, an Oceanid nymph, and 4 pals who must be her infamous children. Bia was the goddess of force, Kratos was the god of strength, Nike was the goddess of triumph, and Zeus was the deity of dedication. His following words were directed towards Styx. You came, Métis told me about how Kronos threw all those who he thought might join me into Tartarus. Oh, he tried, she said, but he failed. Couldn't get through to me within the river. He sent Pallas to try to persuade me to leave, she explained, but as you know, I've already made my promise, so he was told to keep me there instead. That is, until my children arrived, tied him up and freed me, so I brought them here with me. He gave her a nod of affirmation. Bia asked, is this it? As she looked around the island with a mocking expression on her face. Naruto cocked his brow towards her. Yes, this is it. It's not grand, but it's home. We must defend Naruto, Zeus said. Bia, be patient. Nice things will come later. Choose for yourself, Naruto said as he stretched his arms. A spot to lay among these, for we will soon be at war with the Titans. I hope very soon, Nike, the goddess of triumph, added. They set out to find a place to stay on the island. Naruto took to the air as an eagle and swooped towards the cave, where he knew his siblings lived. My brothers and sisters, I have discussed our next course of action with Métis. We've decided to storm the Titan god Creo's home. Flying south with his siblings, Naruto used telepathy to communicate the news of the defeat and capture of Creos, Lord of the South and Titan deity of the stars and constellations. Part of the problem with fighting a war against immortals that Naruto was realizing was that they couldn't die. Rather of using easier techniques, immortals fighting other immortals had to think about how to incapacitate their opponents, lest they come back to trouble you again. This was a dilemma that Métis and Naruto had to deal with. As all of the Titans were immortals, they eventually came to the conclusion that they would have to use Kronos' well-known strategy against his father's name. Though the immortals of Greek mythology could not die from deadly wounds, they were nevertheless fatal. Unlike most novels he read, the gods lacked super healing, necessitating the necessity for medical gods who specialized in the art of mending. Creos is known to many as a loner, greater than he thought to them. Choosing the company of stars over the company of humans, greater than. He is accompanied by a band of mortals who follow him everywhere in search of knowledge from the stars that litter Oranos. We'll ignore the mortals and go straight for him. Hades will paralyze him with his helm. Poseidon would pin him to the ground with the help of the girls to keep him from running. Greater than. If anything goes wrong, I'll be there to help, Poseidon remarked, mockingly. You will not be required to participate in any way. I hope I don't have to, because he'll be the simplest of the Titans we'll fight in this conflict. Greater than Naruto bit back. It was Métis' plan to go after Creos. As far as Naruto could tell, it made sense to gain much-needed experience in battle with immortals. Flying more and deeper into the south, towards the rumored location of Creos. It has been observed, it required a lot of questioning of the mortals and nymphs that resided here before they could pinpoint his exact whereabouts. Creos had taken to ascending to the top of the local mountain alone in recent months to obtain a decent glimpse of the sky. He was on top of the mountain, tracking the motion of the stars, when his 6 eternal nephews and nieces appeared out of nowhere in their usual shapes. He was a 16-foot tall man with night sky blue eyes and a thick sheen of dark golden brown hair on his head. Krios was hit with a sudden wave of panic, and he looked about, adrenaline kicking in. 3 ladies pushed him to the ground, one holding his leg, another his arm, and the third ramming herself into his comparatively huge chest, knocking him flat on his back. Poseidon charged forward, forcing him to the ground with his trident through his stomach, the force with which he trapped him causing the ground to quake violently for a few minutes before halting. Krios let out a deafening yell of rage. His academic countenance contorted into a grimace of great hate. He would undoubtedly reach his mortal companions at the foot of the mountain. "Children of Kronos," he snarled, "are you so fearful that you'd only face a titan?" When he is unarmed and alone. Naruto chose not to respond to his taunt, instead ordering the decapitation of Krios. Poseidon, on the other hand, was not as restricted. "Naruto." He slashed at him while wrenching his trident from Krios' stomach. Krios grasped the trident in his hand and, despite the severe gashes it inflicted, yanked it from Poseidon's hands and tossed it away. Poseidon gaped as the trident spun down to the earth, a hit to the gut sending him gasping and collapsing. Knowing that the situation could quickly deteriorate, if not dealt with immediately, Naruto jumped into the ring. Despite his injuries, Krios demonstrated his worth. He had proven himself to be a skilled fighter when he defeated Poseidon. His opponent, though, was unlike any other. He was competing against Naruto, the first Olympian. Naruto jumped out as fast as lightning in need. Krios smacked him in the chin, knocking him back, ichor oozing from his mouth where he'd bit his tongue. Naruto came in, sweeping his legs out from under him, and he tumbled down the mountain, hitting into the sides before ultimately landing on Gaia with a thunderous crash. Krios stood up in an attempt to leave his enemies, but a yell from Naruto to Hades put an end to his escape put an end to that. A rush of utter horror washed over him. He came tumbling down to his knees trembling as a result of his lethal wounds. The mortal followers of Krios rapidly surrounded their immortal instructor, their fists up high in a battle stance. Krios let out a scream of sheer frustration and determined rage. Krios's once dark blue eyes began to glow in a pure faint white light comparable to stars. His skin began to glow as if he had a light bulb under his skin, and the air around him began to stir. But Naruto had none of it. A blast of lightning struck the air, vaporizing the mortals around him. He charged at Krios as quickly as he could. His decapitation was announced to his siblings. Hades arrived with a sword in one hand. Krios' head was split from his body by a rapid stroke. His entire body, taking hold of the mouthing head, Hades cursed his enemies and threw the head into a conjured-up bag. Poseidon descended the cliff, mountain wearing an embarrassed scowl. His expression, "I didn't mean to Maya." Naruto charged at him, cutting him off. "Never again," he screamed, "you'll never go." Against orders once more. Shame crept onto his face as he realized he wouldn't be getting any help from the others. Naruto's heart was still filled with annoyance, but opted to concentrate on the task at hand. "We got what we came for," he declared. "We're going back home." Po versus Kronos. Kronos and his immediate allies had convened at the summit of Mount Othries in Kronos' throne room to deliberate what needed to be done about his children's escape. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Kronos was enraged, possibly more so than he had ever been in his immortal life. What in chaos' name was that wretched woman thinking? He reflected to himself. No, I know precisely what she was thinking. How could I have been so deafeningly dia? She'd strive to save them. Crack, the sound of the Cyclops' forged throne cracking beneath Kronos' clenched fist resounded in the vast space, silencing everyone who was present. "Atlas, please come forward." Atlas advanced through the crowd of immortals, both titans and non-titans. Among the various terms that could be used to characterize Atlas, the word massive was the most likely to come to mind. He appeared before Kronos, a man of 18 feet in height, exuding the raw might that only a celestial being could aspire to accomplish. His complexion had a deep bronze color, and his thick gray luscious hair cascaded from his head down to his shoulders, and he had the figure of a strong man, with a long thick gray beard that reached his huge barrel chest. He had limbs and legs as thick as tree trunks, and his eyes were the color of red albino. Atlas approached the base of Kronos' platform and knelt in submission. Atlas mumbled, "My lord." His display of humility had no effect. Put out the raging fires of rage within Kronos. Atlas, my general, Kronos began. What exactly is your job? My lord. Atlas asked again, this time Asa. Question. What is your job? I inquired. Atlas swallowed nervously. I am to serve and protect you, my lord. You are to serve and protect me, Kronos said, so tell me, Atlas, what is your job? Where was I when that boy was poisoning me? Did you? My lord, forgive me, I did not think that anyone could be so foolhardy as to attack your per. Kronos was filled with rage. You dare to seek forgiveness. But he did, Kronos exclaimed, leaping off his throne, scythe in hand. He attacked me, he said, pointing to himself, while you were sleeping. We were out there, doing what chaos knows. Atlas felt a thrill of terror when he saw his scythe came into view. He stared down at the kneeling titan as he walked down the platform that held his throne. The only reason you have escaped my scythe is that, despite your failure, you have served me well in the past. Thank you very much, my lord. You may return, he remarked as he walked back up the stairs to the throne. Atlas rose from his knelt position and returned to where he had been before being summoned. Looking at the stoic titan who stood, Koios, he said below him on his right. Is there any news from Oceanus? I believe he, the titan god said, shaking his head, wishes to remain neutral in this war. That was hilarious, Kronos snorted. Oceanus is nothing if not predictable. Coward, he proved the truth of that last time, he remarked, glancing up at the paintings on the ceiling depicting Orano's fall. The oldest of us titans, yet the youngest. Impressive. Perhaps you're being too harsh, brother. You remember what it was like, living under father's rule, how scared we were all the time, Koios said defensively, glancing up at the ceiling. Sometimes, while hiding under the caves in Mother, I wondered if our other siblings had it better because they were so far away from him. Perhaps, Kronos said ponderously. Enough of this, Oranos is no longer with us. Now I have to deal with these kids. What do you suggest we do? Koios inquired. Kronos stared forward at nothing. We consolidate our power, in particular. Somebody who expresses sympathy in any way, the rebels must be thrown into prison. Tartarus, where they can't hurt anyone. This is our cause. Call Ark and tell her to go as far as she can. She spreads herself as widely as she can. This is my message. What exactly is this message, my lord? Kronos came to a halt as he attempted to gather the words. Are correct. What do you suggest we do? Koios inquired. Kronos stared forward at nothing. We consolidate our power, in particular. Somebody who expresses sympathy in any way, the rebels must be thrown into prison. Tartarus, where they can do us no harm. Calling Ark, tell her to spread my message as far and wide as she can and even further. What is this message, my lord? Kronos stopped, trying to find the perfect words. Please inform her that we are at war. Rumors of Creo's loss spread far and wide, with the majority of these rumors coming from the mouths of Kronos' children. Creo's whereabouts were investigated. In his rage, Kronos authorized a hunt for his disobedient progeny, stating that any non-Titan would be exalted to Titanhood, and any Titan would be exiled. Any boon would be granted to the Titan who discovered them. They may wish. No matter how hard they tried, no one could figure out where they lived, and Kronos was frequently mentioned, to numerous locations where people thought they were hiding, all to no avail. Meanwhile, Naruto and his siblings were in the midst of a battle on the remote island of Crete. A sparring match to hone their talents, as the rest of the audience cheered. They were sparring on a sandy clearing surrounded by a dense grove of trees. Naruto had made the decision to use his old telekine. A spear and a shield were fashioned. Poseidon wielded his trusty trident, and Hades wielded Hades. A two-handed Xiphos was preferred. Currently, Naruto and Poseidon were fighting, with Hades nowhere in sight. Poseidon charged forward, expecting to slay him with his trident. Naruto, recalling that blocking the trident was impossible, dodged out of the way, whirling sideways, his spear stabbed at Poseidon, leaving a thin cut at his side. Poseidon dabbed at his side, more out of shock than pain, then struck the sea in retribution. Naruto was shaken by the earth in front of him. Shake the earth. Naruto almost fell down, but he managed to stay upright in the end. Second, he transformed into an eagle and flew away. Dropping from the heavens, he smacked square into Poseidon, knocking him down. Do you yield? Naruto inquired, a little amused. Never. A kick to the small of his back sent him flying. Naruto is sprawled out a few feet from Poseidon. Naruto rose to his feet as he saw Hades lift Poseidon off the floor. There you have it. He understood that finding Hades while he was invisible was nearly impossible, so he devised a method to draw him out. Naruto ran as fast as lightning to the now apparent Hades, sending him flying with a punch to the gut. Hades was heard yelling, as he crashed down below the woods, out of sight. Poseidon was summoned with a fast thrust to the throat. Once more to the ground, this time suffocating as well as sputtering. "Are you willing to yield?" Naruto said again. "Ack, cough, cough. Yes, chaos, damn it, I did it." "Yield," Naruto chuckled as he helped Poseidon to his feet. "Maybe next time." Poseidon returned to the others, limping away with a disappointed expression on his face, ignoring their words of sympathy. "Someone, please inform Hades that the fight is over," he said. "Naruto," a voice from behind him said. Turning around, he noticed Meiti. A blindfolded woman walked alongside her on her way to him. Her black hair cascaded down to her shoulders, she had deathly pale complexion with a strong jawline, her pure white chitin flowed in the breeze, and her blindfold was stained with gold as if her eyes were bleeding. Despite being blindfolded, she walked with the confidence of someone who could see. "Naruto," Meiti said again. "This is Themis, Titan goddess of justice," she added, pointing to the woman beside her. "What is a Titan?" Naruto responded, staring sidelong at Meiti. "Surely you don't expect me to believe that a Titan would join us." "But I do, Naruto, son of Kronos," Themis responded. "Kronos' reign has not been filled with justice," she says, drawing Naruto's attention back to her. "He dispenses punishment on whomever does not please him." "Oh, but he has," she argued. "He had never laid a hand on me, true, but in his everyday ruling, he disregards my counsel, he disregards justice. And you come to me because you believe I can help you." "Will not disregard you?" he inquired. "No, I came to you in the hope that you will not ignore justice." Meiti noticed Naruto's sidelong glance at her. He received a nod. "All right, we accept you and your advice," he said. "Make," he replied, waving his hand to the island. "Make yourself at home here wherever you choose, as long as it is empty." She entered, bowing in his direction, the island to follow his advice. When she was finally out of earshot, "I'll be honest with you, Meiti, I'm not entirely sure about her," he said as he turned around to face Meiti. "Why? Is it because she is a Titan?" "Because of her reason for joining us," he responded. "She didn't join us because she thought I had a chance of winning like you. She didn't join me because she had no choice like my siblings, and she didn't join me because of a promise. She came with me because she sees me as the leader. What if, one day, she thinks to herself that maybe Kronos isn't so horrible after all?" Meiti groaned slightly in frustration, taking a long breath before answering, "Then make sure she never sees things that way again." "That's it, that's your advice," he said, with an amused look on his face. "Whether you like it or not, I have nothing else to give you. If we don't accept people because we don't believe in them, if we follow their logic, we will undoubtedly be outnumbered." He groaned. "I suppose you're right. What about your father? Is it possible to persuade him to join our cause?" Naruto inquired. Her lips curled into a mocking smile. "Ha, my father is the biggest coward in the universe," she replied. "You'd be more likely to persuade a rock to attack Uranos himself." "I have to go, I might be missed," she said as she turned around to head towards the water when Naruto called her name. "Meiti, wait, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have complained." "It's okay, Naruto, you were just being cautious." Po versus Hyperion. Po versus under the bright light of his sun, the lone figure of Hyperion flew high above the clouds in the sky on his golden chariot. Hyperion was a 16-foot-tall man of absolute beauty. A halo of brilliance emanated from his bald head. His skin was bathed in an almost blinding white light. His hair was a gorgeous dark golden bronze color, and his eyes were a light gold tint that was almost yellow. As the Titan of Light and Lord of the East, Hyperion was one of the most powerful and respected Titans in the universe, possibly second only to Kronos, yet this notion did nothing to calm his fears. After all, Hyperion was present beside Kronos when their father predicted his brother's demise. They had forgotten it at first, drunk on their success over the almost insurmountable job of dethroning Uranos, but as time passed, they couldn't help but wonder whether it was true. Flashback: the four sons of Uranos had assembled at an unspecified location on Gaia. Laughing and crying the day before Kronos' wedding. When Koyos are cracking jokes with one another, do you remember what father said? just before Kronos deposed him? Kronos' mood deteriorated slightly when his cursed father was mentioned. Yes, I recall, he replied, but what of it? It could be nothing, but I still think we should proceed with caution. Koyos, Hyperion remembered saying at this time, you worry too much, Oranos was just saying that to spite us, I'm sure it was nothing. But if Hyperion rose from the rock he'd previously sat himself on. But if nothing else, he said, we defeated the sky himself, how in chaos can some brat even imagine, let alone succeed, in bringing us down? With his hands outstretched, he glanced at each of them. Are we going to waste our time thinking about the impossible? Not entirely impossible, said Krios, the quietest of the four. Father most likely thought it was impossible to depose him. That was father, Hyperion insisted. This is us, and as long as we're together, we'll be fine. Nothing can stop us from keeping an eye on each other's backs. Bring us to our knees. This is it, Kronos said, nodding to his statements. True, I will not be afraid of my father forever. In other words, he has vanished, as has his bogus prophecy. Together with him. Flashback concludes, what an idiot I was. Perhaps if I had said something, this would all have been averted. But he hadn't, and they were now at odds. Sighing, Hyperion returned to his work. Hunting for the rebels when, all of a sudden, an eagle was observed a few miles ahead of him. Went straight for him. Normally, he would ignore the seemingly suicidal bird, but knowing Naruto's shapeshifting abilities, he chose to keep a watch on it. The eagle banked hard, leaving behind a passing cloud, almost as if it read his thinking. Hyperion craned his neck after it, but quickly lost sight of it. He drove his chariot towards the cloud. He began to have doubts in his heart. Surely, if it was one of them, I would have known. Already under attack, he returned his chariot to its original path, disappointed. A guy leapt out of the cloud, carrying a lightning-fast blow aimed at his head. Went straight for him. Normally, he would pay little or nothing. Pay attention to the ostensibly suicidal bird, but, knowing Naruto's shapeshifting abilities, he opted to stay. Keep an eye on it. Almost as if it had read his mind, a passing eagle banked aggressively to the left. Hyperion craned his neck to pursue the cloud. But quickly lost sight of it. He drove his chariot towards the cloud. He began to have doubts in his heart. Surely, if it was one of them, I would have known. Already under attack, he returned his chariot to its original path, disappointed. A figure rushed out of the cloud, a lightning-fast fist aimed at his skull. He was thrown from his chariot and imprisoned, spiraling all the way down from the skies. Way to the earth. Boom. He landed with a tremendous thud, receiving. He was bewildered from the fall and failed to notice the numerous immortals that surrounding him as he knelt. Nike laughed and said, you, my friend, I just happened to land in the wrong neighborhood. She clenched her fists to stress her point. Words. Bia, never one to waste time, threw the initial punch. To his brow. The jolt jerked his head to the side. This served to further confuse him. Zeus took advantage of this by landing an uppercut on him. Droplets of golden ichor streamed from his lips, certainly not the children of Styx. After seeing the ichor, you may relax. Kratos punched a hole in the wall with his fist. Hyperion's stomach and out his back. Hyperion was bewildered as he slumped back on the ground. The rapid burst of attacks, he managed to say, curse you. Thud. A pair of feet landed a few feet away from his head. Looking up at the owner from a few steps away, he noticed a attractive man with long black hair reached his shoulders and had blue eyes. The color of the sky in the summer. This man held a spear made of pure gold. Energy that blasted strength unlike anything other. Curse you, Kronos, son of Kronos. The man did not say anything to him, but instead of raising the hand that held the spear held high, the children of Styx moved in response to the signal. The spear then moved as far away as it could. The man's hand and hit him square in the face. Hyperion. Surprisingly, Hyperion felt no pain and saw nothing except a bright burst of light for the few seconds he was still conscious. Then there was nothing. Poseidon lives deep beneath the waves. They were here by Naruto's side, swimming beside Styx. Orders to persuade Oceanus, the current president lord of the oceans and seas, Pontus, to join their cause, while her children would pursue Hyperion. The pair had been swimming for miles together. Styx directing the way to the sea's bottom. Oceanus had the Cyclops in the water. construct his gorgeous underwater palace. Unlike other universe residents, the immortal gods could survive in any environment. Their bodies did not require the air that was present. Ether, it didn't require food or water. Water is required for survival. Poseidon's eyes expanded as he saw the palace of Oceanus. It was a vast palace, much larger than Kronos, with massive walls made of calcite minerals and semicircle roofs made of pearls, while algae and seaweeds of various colors bloomed all over the place. The plants appeared to contribute to the rather than removing the palace's beauty. Poseidon could view a variety of sea deities, littering, both children of Oceanus and not. The palace's crevices, as they made all of them made their way to Oceanus' throne room. They were clearly having a good time. Poseidon was taken aback by such joy. A conflict is raging hundreds of kilometers above them. It was taking place between two groups of gods. He looked to Styx, wondering why she would bother leaving this place for Earth's issues, and was astonished to see nothing but a scowl on her face. Her expression. Styx, contrary to Poseidon's predictions. She was not happy to be here, recalling the bittersweet recollections of her time here. Poseidon and Athena became alarmed when they saw the foreigner. They all lowered their voices and whispered to one another, one of their king's favorite daughters, Styx. Making their way to the end of the throne room, where the giant Oceanus and Tethys sat in a united throne on a dais, a massive snake with black scales and yellow eyes hissed at the sight of the couple, attracting the attention of the two kings to the duo. Oceanus was a tall, muscular man. His hair was silvery white and jutting from his head were two horns resembling crab claws, and his eyes were the color of green grass. Tethys, on the other hand, was a stunning woman with dark hair and pale hazel eyes flecked with gray. Styx yelled out loud for everyone to hear. "I have returned, mother and father," she says. Rang out throughout the throne room. "Yes, Styx, we see that," Oceanus said. "But who is that you've brought with you, another son of yours?" he exclaimed. Poseidon's cheeks were creased with a little scowl. Styx sighed as he said that sentence. "You ask that every time I come here with a question." "Man," she yelled fiercely. "We only care about ourselves," Tethys said this time. "So many years alone do strange things to a person. Even one of your ancestors." Styx sighed in irritation and replied, "That is not the case." "Why I'm here, and you already know, then why are you here?" Tethys asked. Styx yelled even loudly than before, "Father, Mother, for too long Kronos has sat on his throne from on high, ordering the universe to his every whim. Previously, we couldn't disobey him for fear of his legendary scythe, but right now in the upper world, a son of Kronos is warring with his father, just as Oranos prophesied, and if Oranos' prophecy is true, he will one day dethrone Kronos to become the new king of the gods." Oceanus and Tethys had exchanged uneasy glances throughout the discourse. "And what does this have to do with us?" Oceanus inquired, stroking his beard. "Yes, what does this have to do with us?" Tethys said again. "We are a peaceful people who want nothing to do with the upper world and its problems." "Father, Mother," she stopped, "it is my and Naruto's hope that you will assist us in the war." Putting the emphasis on us. As the many ocean and sea deities voiced their viewpoints, astonished screams reverberated throughout the throne room. "Silence!" yelled Thamas, the younger half-brother of the Titans Oceanus and Tethys and the son of Gaia and Pontus. "And, where is this Naruto?" Tethys inquired. "Is he the man standing next to you?" she said once the voices went down. Poseidon took a step forward, his head held high, and said, "No, I am not Naruto. I am his brother, Poseidon." "Ha, you see, my love," Tethys insisted, "Naruto does not even come himself, he sends us an emissary." Poseidon bristled at her remarks and opened his mouth in rage, but Styx intervened before he could say anything. "Naruto simply has too many problems to solve for him to come here. Otherwise, I assure you, he would have personally visited you." "Your assurance means little," Tethys replied. "How can he think, let alone expect us to join a man we haven't met?" Frustration at the situation, and especially at Naruto, was rising up inside her. "Damn him, I told him this would happen. Whether he came here himself or not, they would still refuse him." The whispers in the throne room had become considerably louder than they had been when it began, and very few spoke of joining the war as a favorable thing. "But I've seen him myself, Mother, and I know he's worthy," she yelled over the din of voices. "He defeated Camp." Shouts of disbelief rang out from every corner of the room. Oceanus raised his left arm, and hush fell. "So has Kronos. It was how he convinced her to be his jailer, Oceanus replied. Daughter, surely you see the danger in siding with the boy, Oceanus urged, because if the boy loses, Kronos' wrath will not be limited to him. We won't lose, Poseidon said, because we have a plan. Ha 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 ha, Tethys laughed, you say a plan. Hear that, my love, they have a plan, she mocked Oceanus. What good would a plan be against Kronos' scythe? She scoffed, I mean, he defeated the entire sky with that scythe. Styx recognized the opportunity she had been looking for and seized it. Not alone. What? Not alone, Styx said again, he had his brothers to help him, without them, he would have surely lost. This is our strategy. We will separate him from as many of his brothers as possible before attacking him directly. Oceanus spoke up this time. Child, I admit it's a good plan, but it's a very dangerous one. I think I speak for my entire people when I say, let the upper world deal with its own problems. The entire audience erupted in delight at his words, shaking their fists and clapping loudly. Poseidon saw the futility of persuading them to support their cause. Come, he murmured, gently holding her shoulders and tugging her towards the gates, we can't persuade them, our work here is finished. Styx's heart was filled with rage as she wrenched herself free from Poseidon's grasp and returned to her father. Do you know how they refer to you up there? She demanded, pointing to the sky. Well, you do you. I know what they call me, and it doesn't matter to me, Oceanus moaned. It doesn't matter to you, she said mockingly, but it should. She swam closer to the dais. Because they call you a coward up there, she said quietly. A coward, she yelled. Do you know what it's like to be insulted for your ancestry? Up there, Oceanids like myself are dubbed spawns of a coward. They recount the beginning of the Titan's reign and how you fled, refusing to help, for fear of your father's wrath. No one ever mentioned that down here. Perhaps you ordered them not to, she shrugged, or perhaps they don't care about anything going on in the upper world. No one forewarned me, or any of my brothers and sisters. She snorted. At first, I wouldn't believe them, she hesitated. How could I believe that my seemingly strong, always present, and dependable father could be nothing more than brothers and sisters? She snorted. At first, I wouldn't believe them. How could I believe that my seemingly strong, ever-present, and dependable father could be nothing more than a coward? She hesitated. Oceanus' face was stained with shame as he heard her harsh comments. But now, I see the truth of their words. With those previously secret words said, she turned away from her father and went, accompanied by Poseidon. To be continued.
That's it for this part, guys. Thanks for listening to this video. I hope you did enjoy this video story, and if you did, like, share, and subscribe for more. And thank you all for helping support, and have a great day.